Hi everyone, hope you can hear me all right. So I'm Krishan Seneviratne and I'm working as a senior software architect at Sysco LABS. And thanks Aziz for that insightful presentation. And IT is not just an expense now in this new world. And then obviously with the post-COVID situation, it's not going to be just an expense, and it's a first-class citizen in an organization's business journey. So I'll be talking a lot more on an organization's journey towards cloud native and what, apart from technology, is important in this journey. So let me right. Yeah, this is how it works in production as well. It works when we did the dry run. Now the controls are not working, and yeah, firefighting in production. Right. So yeah, I'll start with a story. Obviously, you might know these names, Blockbuster and Kodak. If you are a millennial and you're not too sure about Blockbuster, imagine CD World that we had in Sri Lanka. So Blockbuster. So this is about how these big companies, once they were industry giants, but they failed to adapt to fast changing market conditions, and ultimately it led to the bankruptcy of those companies. So if I take Blockbuster first, so Blockbuster was a very big chain of stores, and it had, I think in the late 90s, Blockbuster was at its peak. It had around 85,000 employees with over 9,000 locations, and they had around 65 million customers. So you can imagine the scale. And we don't have that company anymore. So what really happened? So Netflix ate their lunch. And so what happened was Blockbuster never imagined a world where internet would play a major part in how people would interact with movies or music. So they never really imagined what will happen if internet booms, and then people would start using video on demand and all that. But Netflix, on the other side, they had nothing to lose. They started small. They had nothing to lose. They started with video rentals, just like Blockbuster, but over the internet. People could order movies via the internet, and they would be sent directly via snail mail. But Blockbuster never imagined that. And when they imagined that, it was too late. This is the classic innovator's dilemma. So you have this cash cow and you are the dominant player in the market. So you don't have a reason. You are reluctant to totally disrupt the industry yourself, because you are the industry back then. But we know what happened. The rest of the story is well known. Now we don't have Blockbuster. They just have one small store in Oregon, US. And we know the scale of Netflix right now. And this is mostly a technology failure. When they realized the mistakes they have done, it was too late. They could not even catch up to Netflix, because you need a lot of research development capabilities to get to where Netflix is right now. And it has a lot of short-sighted management decisions as well. So it's a strategy plus technology failure. And on the other side, Kodak is a different story. So I took two stories to emphasize not all failures are in technology failures. So Kodak was indeed, we all know Kodak, right? I don't think there's anybody here in this forum who does not know Kodak. So any memorable moment, if you had let's say a child's first steps into a marriage, was branded a Kodak moment. So they dominated the film and camera industry. It was not just setting the tone of that industry, they were the industry. And it was not a technology failure at all. So in fact, Kodak invented the digital camera. And back in the 80s and 90s, they invested billions on the research and development of the digital camera. So this was purely a cultural problem that got Kodak into where they are right now. That company is still there, but now they are into pharmaceutical very recently after COVID, they moved into pharmaceutical. So they did not have the right culture to reap the benefits out of all the research and development they were doing. And their revenue model was focused on photo printing, because photo printing was the business. Even though they had films and camera, they did not have a lot of margin on those. Photo printing was their business. So they created the digital camera, they invested on the technology, and they even understood in the future people would share photos instead of printing. But they failed to realize it was going to be the future business. So instead, what they did was they used all their internet and web capabilities to promote photo printing more. And finally, they had to sell parts of their organization company to Shutterfly, and we know Shutterfly what they're doing right now. So that Shutterfly is still in the business and they're doing something totally separate. So the to truly survive in this new era. So technology matters. So how would people, process, and culture would contribute to your company's journey towards cloud native? Right, coming to the punchline of my presentation, cloud native is just more than microservices and Kubernetes. You can brag about how many microservices you have in your company. We have thousands of microservices, or maybe 500s of hundreds of microservices, and we have containerized all that. We are using Kubernetes or ECS to orchestrate. That doesn't mean you're cloud native. It means you're in the cloud, but that doesn't mean you're cloud native. So cloud native is just much more than technology or a tool set. So what is cloud native? Now, if I ask, unfortunately, we are in a remote world right now. I missed the ticker and asking questions. So if I ask what cloud native is from maybe 10 of you, you will give me 10 answers. Doesn't mean any one of you is wrong. It's just we don't have a definitive answer as to what cloud native is. It's just a philosophy, an approach, and what we need to understand is it's an approach for building applications to take full advantage of cloud computing. So you have cloud computing, we know what cloud computing is. How do you now take advantage of that to address the human challenge of cloud native? Otherwise, what you'll end up is, we know cloud computing is complex. Now, on top of that, you have cloud computing, you have containerized applications, you have microservices. Now, on top of your cloud computing complexities, you are just adding distributed computing complexities, because what you have done is you have distributed your application into microservices, and you have to worry about all those complexities that lies around microservices. So it's a separate talk in itself on microservices and the complexities around that. So I'm not going to go deep into that. And this paradigm requires not only just embracing technology, but you need to embrace new ways of working, and that is something that needs to happen from top down. And an organization, you take an organization, it needs to happen top down. So coming to my next slide, it's on how the C-suite leadership uh, uh, matters in a cloud native journey. Because I've worked in an organization, a Fortune 55 company, and I've seen some of these firsthand. You have to align at the top. So if your C-suite, your CEO, CFO, and all the executives are not aligned towards this cloud journey, it will not be a successful journey, because there will be different people having different ideas of how that should work. And there would be others complaining, I'm not getting any features delivered because you are now focusing on your cloud native journey, because it's an investment, and it will take some time as well. It's not just in two months you can become cloud native. It's a journey that will take time, and the C-suite needs to embrace that themselves. And so they need to position this move in the context of a large digital and business transformation. So without that, it's very hard for you to proceed, because underlying there would be a lot of other complexities that you will get into. And you need obviously an adaptive strategy. Without strategy, nothing will work. So you need a strategy which clearly defines how these business outcomes are, what are the business outcomes you seek, and how you are going to go there. So if you do not have a high level, at least a high level strategy driven strategy towards cloud native, then you'll most probably fail. I've seen some of those happening, and you need the strategy. What are you going to do and how you are going to get there? And obviously the culture of experimentation, I'm going to talk more about that in one of my later slides. You need people to experiment. You need your people to innovate. Without that, it's very difficult to survive in this cloud native and cloud journey, because some of these technologies are changing rapidly. And you need to obviously reward innovation and risk taking. Without that, people would be afraid of innovation, afraid of risk taking, afraid of experimentation, because they feel they'll be penalized if they make a mistake. So you don't want that. So you want to reward innovation, reward risk taking. You need to understand an experiment innovation means there is a risk of failure as well. And the last part is about trainings. You need to provide necessary trainings, because this is a vastly growing area, and some of these technologies might be new. Some of them might might be new to your organization, so you need to invest a lot in necessary trainings. And this is something I've encountered when I was researching to do this presentation. This is from the KPMG 2019 Global CEO Lookout. I was reading through that document, and this is a phrase that I got from that. So 44% of CEOs, they plan to upskill more than half of their entire workforce, but only a third they could prioritize the workforce investments over technology investments. You feel how difficult it is to prioritize workforce investments. But if you don't do that, then you will end up with an organization which uses just legacy technologies, because without that you can't survive in these fast moving cloud environments. So I'm going to focus now on people, and I've touched upon some of those. So cloud paradigm, and what you need to understand is, I think even Aziz mentioned some of that, it combines several technology disciplines that were traditionally considered distinct. So if you look at network engineering, systems administrations, software development, database administration, so those were distinct skills with distinct set of people in the past when we were in on-premise type data centers. But now all of those boundaries are now connected together. So you need skills which cross boundaries across all those disciplines. And you need to think of, in cloud, you need to think of managing fleets of disposable servers, disposable resources, rather than just racks of physical resources with just static names, network addresses, and all that. So it's a paradigm shift on your thought process. So for that, you need the right people, multi-skilled, multi-talented, multidisciplinary people, full stack developers. You need these types of people. And obviously, if you are moving towards this, and if you are an organization that is already being in the business for a lot of years, and you have a set of people who are working on these traditional segments of work, you need to upskill them to start using these technologies and experiment using these. So you need to get them transitioned into different roles. Without that, it would be very difficult for you to manage this journey. So if I take an analogy, so this is like, let's say you know how to drive a car because you've done it yourself for the past 20 years. Now you know how to drive a car. So it doesn't matter whether you drive a Maruti or a Mercedes. When you get into the driver's seat, you know how it feels, you know how to do that, you know how to put the gears, you know how to pedal and all that. So you know how to drive a car. Now suddenly we ask you to we put you in a cockpit for you to fly a plane. So it looks familiar because you see the pedals and all that, and some buttons. To be frank, I've never been into a cockpit, so I think it's familiar because there's this handle and all that, but you don't know how to fly. You need a specialized skill to do that. So that is where you need to upskill your people. Otherwise, what you'll end up is you'll be just driving the plane or riding the plane instead of flying the plane. So you need your people to fly the plane instead of just driving it. So that's very important. You need to upskill your people. Without that, you will be just ending up with a set of technologies which worked in the data center now in the cloud, but it works the same way because you are using the traditional set of people who used to do these things in a particular manner. They haven't been upgraded or upskilled, so they don't know how to reap the best out of the cloud technologies. And most importantly, and this is something that I got from CNCF, and you can see, you can see how complex, so how many number of technologies, and I don't think you can even see these technologies because it's too small. I had to zoom this out to take a screenshot. You can see how many technologies you have here, and how can people can easily get lost in these technologies if you don't upskill them, and if they don't have the right set of maturity and skills to understand this. So the people factor is very important, just as technology. Moving into process. So if you no matter how trained your people are, if you have processes that would stop them from doing what they really want to do, you won't take everything out of cloud native. So you don't just want to put the latest tech stack on the same old way the things were done. So if you have a process which lays out, okay, I need 2 days to spin up a server, or maybe it takes 1 week. I need to send a approval and an email 1 week prior to spinning up an environment. Is that cloud native is what we need to look at. Is this process needed? This was a traditional process that was needed when we were in data centers, because obviously we know allocating a server in a data center takes time, obviously. But in the cloud world, do we need a day and a week for an environment? So you need to look at what existing processes you have, and do they even make sense in this new world? And if you have, let's say, a PO approval which takes a week for you to allocate a server, it doesn't really make sense in the cloud world. So you need to start asking questions. What are the current set of processes we have? Or are you even doing, for example, are you doing architectural reviews after you send something to production? We know it's like better late than never, but is that the right process? So you need to ask those questions before you call yourself cloud native. You need to adjust your processes so that you reap the best out of it. There are no blockers or anything. So you need to ask these questions: how the code is deployed, what are the standards for logging and monitoring, and what is your level of test pyramid adherence? Do you even have tests? Is everything automated? Do you have unit tests? What is the coverage? So everything, all of these questions needs to be asked to make sure you have the right process on top of the latest and greatest technologies. So technology, you have people, then the processes. And moving on, we come to another important factor, which is the culture. And you should have seen this: culture eats strategy for breakfast. This is from Peter Drucker. So just, we know strategy is important. Obviously, without strategy, you won't get anywhere. Just culture is just as important as strategy. And you need to incubate a culture of innovation, experimentation, collaboration, testing, learning. You need to empower your teams. You need to have open culture where people can ask questions without any fear of retaliation. And there should be psychological safety for your employees, and mistakes should be rewarded even if there are mistakes. So if you do like 1,000 mistakes, it's a different story. But that's what's called blameless inquiry. You need to inquire what has happened, and the events that happened, not just who did this, who did that. So that is just bad culture. Just investigate on the events that happened, what happened, and then what are the lessons learned. Because obviously you need lessons learned, otherwise you'll keep on doing the same mistake again and again. You don't need that. So just check what happened, what are the events, how can we do this better next time, and invest on those. And obviously you will need a cloud center of excellence if you are moving towards the cloud journey, because you need your reference architectures done, you need your identity and access management sorted, you need people who can do cost management for you and all that. So you need a cloud center of excellence. And openness is very important. You need to make sure people can raise their voices without any fear of retaliation. So like I've seen like 84% of CEOs says they want a culture where errors are accepted, but only a few things they are there. So even we have seen, right, when people make mistakes, sometimes there is adverse effect on mistakes. But if you have that type of a culture, people are now afraid of doing experiments. You don't want that. In this era, you need people who are innovative, who are fearlessly doing experiments. That's how you will get or you will reap the best out of cloud native. And finally, talking about something technology, because I've been bragging about people, process, and culture. This is obviously, I know a lot of you are technologists, so this is about how you would get some of your migrations done. This is about migration strategies. If you have your applications in your data centers, classic, in some environment, how do you get these into cloud? So one such option is rehosting. We call it lift and shift. This is obviously needed. Some people are not very biased towards lifting and shifting, and they call it non-cloud native, because you are just lifting some technology in your data center and you are replicating it in the cloud. But I feel sometimes you need this, because without this you will get nowhere. If you try to do everything cloud native at the beginning, it might be complex for your team, for your current employees to understand this. So and another reason is maybe you need to get this done quickly. Let's say your data center is being decommissioned. You have just 6 months to get everything out of your existing data centers. Rehosting might be the solution. You just lift everything from your data centers, putting it in VMs in cloud. And the second approach is replatforming. You take from the cloud, maybe piece by piece, you change it a bit, put it in the cloud. That is replatforming. And this is how at Cisco we started our cloud journey. We identified some applications that we could do that, and we did few changes. I'm not saying we refactored everything, but we put some of that into the cloud and we started our cloud journey. That's a starter, at least, right? Then you understand the benefits of cloud. You can slowly become cloud native by putting the latest and greatest technologies, the culture, setting up the culture, people, processes, everything. Finally, the other way is refactoring. This is how you can truly get everything out of cloud native. This is just uh, your refactoring applications. You're making it maybe microservices, containers, orchestration. Everything is there. You are just doing everything right in the cloud. And there are three others. They are not really just migrating, but how you can get this done in a different approach. Repurchase. This is like moving into a software as a service SaaS product. Or maybe you can retire some of these applications if they are no longer required. And finally, you have revisit. If you don't think this is the right time to move this application, you just revisit. You take some time, you understand everything, and then you take it back later. So no matter how you get into the cloud, and this is my last slide, obviously, you need to make necessary investments in your people, processes, and culture as much as you invest in technology. Technology matters, obviously. I'm not saying technology does not matter. This is all about technology. Just like technology, you need to make sure you invest in people, processes, and culture. And as I started, cloud native is not just about microservices or Kubernetes. It's a lot more than that. This is how you take the full benefit out of the cloud. Thank you very much.